Live. And how we doing? How we doing, everyone? Yeah. I have a new guest to the show today. Good friend of the show, Mr. John Olson. It's the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. Going to be hitting on some fun topics today, ranging from the Madden 23 player rankings. We've got Dominique Wilkins and Teddy Bridgewater calling out their peers on various issues. My man, Aaron Judge, continuing to chase Roger Maris's Yankee home run record. We've got a preview of the Yankees and Mets. And I've got Mr. Olson, who's going to do a little predictions and projections for his Packers and what the Brewers need to potentially make a run into October. A little backstory on my buddy John. He is the fantasy commissioner of my favorite league. I play many leagues, but I'm talking about Cheddar in the Sun. A league named after my late father. And John is just an awesome dude, man, from Scandinavia, Wisconsin. And I'm going to let John introduce himself to all of you before we start hitting on some of these topics. Floor is yours, buddy.
Okay. Hello, everybody. Yeah, John Olson, a good friend of Richie's. Been friends since 2005 when I moved down here and met him, and later on met his dad, Richie Hicks Sr. We became great friends as well. And Richie knows his sports. I know my sports, but I don't know if I keep up on it like I used to. But I'll be happy to be on Richie's show today and try and give my 2 cents worth.
Yeah, and your 2 cents worth is definitely a good time because you and I always talk about pretty much any conversation we have that's life related. Somehow we always come back to sports. And without further ado, we're going to start on the Madden 23, my favorite video game, the Madden 23 NFL player rankings for the wide receiver position. Men that you're very familiar with, Davante Adams ranked as a 99. For those of you who don't know, 99 is the best ranking you can receive in the Madden game. Just behind him at 98, Cooper Kupp. We have Tyreek Hill at 97. DeAndre Hopkins, who's going to be sitting for the first 6 weeks of the year, at a 96. Stephon Diggs. Justin Jefferson, 95 for Diggs, 93 for Jefferson. Mike Evans at a 92. Terry McLaurin of a 91. Keenan Allen, also a 91. And I kind of find the 10 spot a little surprising. Amari Cooper, in my opinion, coming off a down year in Dallas, who's now a member of the Cleveland Browns, they got him ranked as a 90. I guess we'll start here with Davante Adams. John, what are your thoughts on losing such a great receiver? And I guess the ranking goes without saying. He's definitely worthy of that 99, but how do you feel about losing him, and how do you feel about your draft and your return?
Well, the loss of Adams came as quite a shock to me.
Yes.
And, as a Packer fan and watching him play for 8 years, I believe it was, with the Packers, I watched him develop from a rookie that dropped passes to a seasoned pro that caught everything thrown his way. But he made a choice that he wanted to go play with Derek Carr. He says he wants to go play closer to home, and Las Vegas really isn't that close to California because I think that's where he's from.
I believe so. Yes,
he'll do well in with the Raiders, but I don't know, the 99. I think he will, with Rodgers as his quarterback. Yes, 99 for sure. I think that Cooper Kupp, teaming with Matt Stafford, should be that number 1 slot with Adams too.
I tend to agree.
Mm-hmm. And go ahead, Rich.
I noticed that being an avid Madden player, I love to play online, and I usually always run with the Giants, which kind of makes me a better player because we haven't been very good over the course of the last 5 years. But to your point, I do like the Cooper Kupp tie with Devontae. I think that's appropriate. I do tend to feel that Tyreek Hill is ranked a little too high, considering that he's no longer with perennial MVP candidate Patrick Mahomes. I do think they have it right with D-Hop, Diggs, and the rest of them, with the exception of Cooper. I said that coming in that I do think Amari Cooper could probably miss the top 10. I myself would consider putting in maybe CeeDee Lamb or maybe even Allen Robinson, considering that Allen Robinson is going to be on that dynamic Rams offense. But one thing I've noticed about playing Madden is that I do think they tend to reward players off of things they've done in the past and not necessarily what they're going to do in the future. But what they do in Madden is that they actually update the rosters weekly if you have an injury, if guys aren't performing or if guys are playing above. Like, for instance, Madden is always hard on rookies. And Kayvon Thibodeau, who is bringing a lot of excitement to the Giants fan base, coming in is actually only ranked to 75. But, definitely a reason, even in my team's case, to have hope for the future. You look at our lineage, and we've had our share of great defensive ends, ranging from OCU Minora, Justin Tuck, Michael Strahan, and even the Crunch Bunch back in the 80s that ran at 3-4. Definitely a lot to be excited in Giants country. It's nice to know that we're finally getting a coaching staff that's going to implement a modern offense, because we have definitely been behind the times in terms of that. But our league, for instance, the Cheddar and the Sun League, I understand that we're going to be adding a receiver slot, and we run a points per reception league. So wide receivers are definitely going to be going quick this year in our draft, and I'm sure good friend of the show, Richard Dorney, is going to be regretting trading that number 1 overall pick, trying to chase the championship last year with your son Josh. But I'm excited, John, man. We are so close to football season. I'm enjoying the ride with the Yankees.
Yes.
But and I know you're enjoying Brewers baseball right now too. We're going to touch on the Brewers towards the end of the show, but very exciting, man. And I always love diving into these Madden rankings because I do think it's relatively accurate to what you're seeing on Sundays and what these teams bring to the table.
Yeah, I don't know if you your first question to me was, I don't know if you said something about, was I happy with their return?
Yes, sir, I did ask that. And
whether fans know this or not, but the Packers offered him more per season than the Raiders did. They offered him, I think, $41 million for, well, it wasn't a $41 million per year, but it was about 27 or 28 million a season.
And there was also some incentives in that too, in terms of keeping up, top 5 receiver production. There is a history with Derek Carr and Devontae Adams. They are best friends. They have a history going back to their collegiate days. And to my understanding, I believe they're neighbors. So, when guys get along, and I know that Rodgers and Adams had a very good relationship as well. I will say this. I like that draft pick you guys got from Nevada. I've mentioned him many times on the show, Romeo Doubs. When I look at guys coming into the league, I try to compare them to people that played before them. And I tend to think that from a skill set and from a potential standpoint, he reminds me a lot of former Steeler and former Giant Plaxico Burress.
Okay.
And I say if he's a player similar to Plaxico, you guys are going to have a very good one there. And I love what you did on defense. I really do. You went to one of the best programs in the country twice, talking about the Georgia Bulldogs. And I do believe that Green Bay, while they've had a good defense for quite some time, needs a few guys that can really get dirty. And, one thing, unfortunately, that happened with your team last year was I felt that the road team used the elements against the home team. And I think Green Bay does not want that to be repeated. They know that they still have a window for Aaron Rodgers to add to his great legacy.
Mm-hmm.
And I do believe that going to be in the mix.
So we got the 2 first-round picks for Adams with the 2 Georgia defensive standouts. They're going to help us. I guess they knew what they were doing when they waited. I'm like, when is the receiver going to come? But they traded up to get Watson, who's got great potential. And And I also like this Dobbs. If you look at their highlight reels, they're fabulous. Of course, the highlight reel shows only their good plays, but they both have the ability to be great with Rodgers.
And one thing I think we can both agree on about Aaron Rodgers, guys like Tom Brady, they tend to make the players around them better that are not necessarily household names.
Yes.
And in that regard, not to take anything away from Davante Adams because he's a phenomenal football player, but I do believe that this gives the opportunity for other guys that have been 2 and 3s in Green Bay's roster to step up. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe you guys also picked up Sammy Watkins.
Yes.
That's a quality player right there. And when healthy, he could still be a problem as a plug-in player for fantasy purposes. And like I said, he's never played with a quarterback quite as good as Aaron Rodgers. And, you have Tunyon, who's coming off an injury that I expect to have a solid year. And in my opinion, you guys have the most dynamic 1-2 punch at running back that kind of gets overshadowed because of the greatness of Aaron Rodgers. Talking about A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones, I mean, these are both dudes that you could feel comfortable drafting in fantasy. And Matt LaFleur, great start. You're talking about the history of that franchise, Curly Lambeau, Vince Lombardi, Mike Holmgren. Mike McCarthy had a good run as well. And for him to have the highest winning percentage in his very young coaching career, and when you think about the legends that I just mentioned, maybe the only non-legend would probably be Mike McCarthy. I do think he benefited from having number 4 and number 12. But really excited, man. I cannot wait for the season. And we have a comment here from a friend of the show, Zach Shack. Football can't come fast enough. And yes, Zach, I second that. He's a Los Angeles Charger fan.
Okay.
And I recently kicked his ass in Madden. I just wanted to share that with the viewing audience.
Just one side note, Richie. I think Green Bay has had 8 games without Devontae playing.
Yes, sir.
I think we're either 8-0 or 7-1 in them. I just saw that a week or 2 ago. Can't remember what it was now, but Rodgers spreads the ball around more when Adams is out of the game.
And it's hard to game plan.
And was it 2 years ago when when Brady and the Bucks beat us? They double teamed Adams and took our receiving game completely away. So we've got the potential now. It might be 1 year of breaking in these rookies, but Lazard, Watkins, Cobb, we're going to be fine.
Yes, you will be. And I think it's very important to make a note that in the Aaron Rodgers era, while many fans, myself included, feel that you guys probably should have at least 2 or 3. Of course, 2011, when you guys went 15-1 and lost to my team, that's a loss that stands out, as does the Seattle heartbreaker, where I thought my father was literally going to break something. But you guys still have that window. And, the cool thing about the future is that you could rewrite your past and kind of add. And I do think in Aaron Rodgers' case, he has to get at least 1 more to truly cement himself as, he's already an all-time great, and we both know that. But he's got to get a little more hardware because, quite frankly, he's too damn talented not to have more hardware.
Really? Yes. So he just I I was so, when I saw we were going to play the 49ers last year, I'm like, not the 49ers. We have a hell of a time beating them. We beat them last season, I think regular season, with a 52-yard field goal by Crosby. But, I mean, and we had the elements, but they played better in the cold and the snow than we did that day.
I feel that from a roster standpoint, they had that advantage. And 2 seasons in a row, going back to the pandemic title game where it was a small Green Bay crowd, where you don't really have that true home field advantage, and also going into last year in the divisional upset, you guys were missing Aaron Rodgers' best lineman, and I do believe in both of those particular games, it was a telltale of the struggles. And, these are the guys that don't necessarily do the commercials or as sell the jersey, so to speak, but the offensive line, no matter what era of football it is, that's where the games are won, in the trenches, and the same can be said for the defensive lines. Mm-hmm. But I do believe, to your point, the Packers are going to have a very exciting season. And barring some kind of difference, I would say the 49ers are still a dark horse, now led by Trey Lance on offense. And I have to say your team, the Green Bay Packers, along with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers and the defending champion Rams, are probably your big 3 to win. Can't count out the Vikings. They are talented. And I guess we'll see what the NFC East produces. But we're going to move this along.
Okay.
We've got an NBA legend calling out a current legend, basically 2 Hall of Fame talents. I'm going to paraphrase here. Dominique Wilkins essentially called out Kevin Durant's career choices in terms of not having the stomach to stick around with teams when things get a little hard or when things are not quite ideal. Now, just to give the viewer a little backstory on Kevin Durant, one of the truly great scorers of not just this generation, but the history of the league, came up with the Seattle Supersonics, which ultimately became the Oklahoma City Thunder. He had a very talented team there with Russell Westbrook and James Harden. He almost won a championship there. They did lose in 7 to Golden State. And in that offseason, he signed with the previously 73-9. That was an NBA best regular season record, Golden State Warriors. And a lot of people viewed that as kind of a punk move because they're like, dude, you almost beat them and you're quitting on your guys. Mm-hmm. Fast forward a couple of years later, he won 2 championships with Golden State. He also had a horrific injury in the NBA Finals. Brooklyn, who is his current team, gave him an opportunity to heal up while still paying him. And he made a demand that he wanted to play with Harden. He wanted to play with Kyrie. He wanted them to go get Blake Griffin for a little star power off the bench. Mm-hmm. And at the first sign of adversity, he is asking for a deal out of Brooklyn. And my opinion and my 2 cents, I'll make it short and sweet. I feel that Dominique Wilkins has a legitimate point.
Yes.
And I'm going to let you kind of rip. I'm going to let you rip on this.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I read the article that Wilkins, what Wilkins said about him. He said, I'm old school, cut from that old cloth, and I feel like you should stay with your franchise. And he even made the mention of at least for a short time or at least for a while. And, Durant, great talent. I mean, I would love to see him as a Milwaukee Buck, but that won't happen. No doubt. We don't have enough to give back to them. But he was only with the Nets 3 years. I don't know if one of the 3 was the year he sat out with injury, but
yes, because when he was the talk of the free agency market, the Nets made the deal with him, and he literally sat out that year and healed. Mm-hmm. And I think it says a lot about an organization when you're willing to wait on someone being hurt. I feel like even the New York Giants, when you talk about a very popular Giant, Victor Cruz, I think that's part of the reason why the Giants were so disenchanted with that boat trip bullshit, because this is a man that they waited and waited and waited for. And that was the final straw. And I think, Victor Cruz, who's a lot more mature than his actions, I think knows that he made a grand mistake. But bringing it back around to this topic, it's not a good look, because as much as LeBron James has been called the father of the super team, and in some ways you can kind of make that assimilation, I tend to think that LeBron's championships, even though I'm not the biggest LeBron fan, are a little more pure than what KD did, because LeBron went back to Cleveland after leaving. LeBron was the best player in Miami. And LeBron, in addition to being one of the better scorers of his generation, also fills up the stat sheet in terms of rebounding and is a very underrated passer.
Yeah, James is a great player. I mean, he was at one time my favorite player. But
me as well.
You can certainly say him and Durant are chasing rings.
No doubt.
LeBron went to Miami. The decision, is that what they call that? Or
they made that into a mockery. Yeah.
Yeah. So he got what, 2 there?
Yes, sir. 4 straight Eastern Conference championships. He defeated San Antonio. He defeated OKC, which was the team with Kevin Durant, Westbrook, and Harden. And he was defeated by the Spurs as well as the Dallas Mavericks, led by J. Kidd and Dirk Nowitzki.
I do give him credit for going back to Cleveland from Miami, and they did win one championship for the Cavaliers. I believe they came back from 3-1.
They sure did. Yeah, the one time that they were able to beat them, and they prevented Golden State from being considered the greatest team of all time, because they did break the 72-10 Bulls record, a game better than them, but without the ring. Similar to the 07 Patriots, they will not be considered the greatest team because they didn't seal the deal. Good friend, my guy Idris, who was on many, many shows. If I'm the Nets not trading KD, this is what he asked for. They gave in to his demands. He's soft. Just to give a little backstory about my buddy Idris, I usually troll him on the show and say, Idris, good friend of Mr. Kevin Durant. He and Kevin Durant kind of exchanged some words on Twitter. Oh. And I can get into the details. It's not necessary. All I'm going to say is that Kevin Durant is very sensitive. And my guy of Hollywood fame and a true New Yorker, Mr. Michael Rappaport, a.k.a. Superboy, a.k.a. the Gringo Mandingo, definitely got under Kevin Durant's skin. And I think it just speaks volumes on a lot of athletes today. It's like in the old days, everything revolved around that you can go in on these guys in terms of their play, family, extramarital affairs, outside life, that's off limits. Nowadays, it's almost like it did a flip-flop. And it's like the dudes that play today chronicle their entire lives on social media, and the one thing that they refuse to talk about is the thing that they're getting paid for.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you think that do you feel that Durant and Irving got to have a bad relationship this last season when Irving only played away games?
Yes, John, I do tend to agree with that, for the sheer fact that Kyrie was not vaccinated for quite some time there, and then New York ultimately changed the vaccination status. I'm not into defending Kevin Durant, but one thing I will say is I do believe that Kevin Durant was just fed up with thinking that he was getting his quote-unquote big three, and all too often was carrying them. And you as a Bucks fan, I'm sure, could relate to this.
Oh, yeah.
Were it not for Kevin Durant stepping on the line, they may have very well stopped your championship. Ultimately, the Bucks did win the championship, which was refreshing for a lot of NBA fans, being that Giannis kind of did it the right way. Oh, check it out. What we got there?
We got the, if I can get it in the picture, my my Bucks shirt anyhow. I got to pull it this way, I guess. It's a
It's a little. It could be a little. I see the antlers.
Yeah. So
yeah, there you
anyhow,
go.
I waited 50 years for
That's
championship number 2. So
and you could see that, and you could say that you saw the big O Oscar Robertson and the former Lou Alcindor, now Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, win a championship, and that's cool. That's like real loyal fandom.
Yeah.
Because I myself have been a lifelong Knicks fan, and it would have been so easy to follow my favorite player, Magic Johnson, and see all the championships. Magic was my favorite player, but the Knicks have always been my favorite team. And I didn't take the easy way out as a fan. Giants won a bowl in '90, and then we sucked for a decade. I didn't quit on them. It would have been easy to follow my father and follow the perennial MVP Brett Favre, but I chose to stay a Giant. So as a fan, when you see these guys just kind of set jumping, so to speak, in terms of who they play for, I understand that it's a business, and I understand that the owners are always going to make more than the players. Hang on one second, Johnny.
Okay.
Bretsky, I'm on a show right now, dude. Say hi to John.
Bretsky. Hello.
All right, that's enough. He ruined it. Good friend of the show, Idris, said he'd love to join in, but he's actually at the car wash. But yeah, John, I think Dominique really nails this topic in terms of what's funny and what's interesting. Dominique Wilkins was the greatest Atlanta Hawk, probably. He was the greatest Atlanta Hawk. And Hawks made a horrific decision. Yeah, they made a horrific decision trading him. Idris Salam, punk-ass Brett. Those guys have a nice competitive thing going here. But, they traded him in '94 for Danny Manning. And rightfully so, they got ousted as the 1 seed in 1994. But for Dominique Wilkins to get done dirty and to still hold on tight to his values of how he feels that you got to stick with your original team, because Wilkins never asked to be traded, I think it says a lot about his character.
I do too.
And speaking of character, Teddy Bridgewater calls out today's NFL players about being better role models for today's kids. Short and sweet, what Bridgewater's point here is that he does not care for a lot of guys kind of coming out of their lane, acting like thugs, kind of giving off the persona as gangsters, and kind of flaunting their money, in the sense that he's like, you guys are a lot more intelligent than you're portraying. Most of you dudes have college degrees. Most of you dudes came from hardworking, good families that helped you get to where you are. And even if some of the aforementioned things aren't true, you're at a level now where a lot of children look up to you. And I applaud Teddy Bridgewater for that, because I'm not necessarily saying that because you're an athlete, you're supposed to be my role model. My role model was my father. My role model was my grandfather. But I'm not going to lie, I wanted to be Lawrence Taylor once upon a time. I wanted to be Mark Bavaro once upon a time, so it is a responsibility, in my opinion, to promote yourself and act a certain way when you are on that level and you have a lot of impressionable kids watching your every move.
Absolutely.
It's not out of style to be classy, and it's not out of style to just do things the right way. A lot of young minds are watching you.
Well, we have our favorite players. I mean, going way back to the Packers' early days, Jimmy Taylor. I love the way he ran. I just he was tough, and he would rather run over you than go out of bounds. So I liked him even more than Bart Starr. But you have your favorite players.
For sure.
And, those players should realize that they have a lot of fans, and their conduct should be, on point all the time, really.
I couldn't agree more. And like Charles Barkley said it best some years ago in the Nike commercial, I'm not paid to be a role model. I'm paid to wreak havoc on a basketball court. And while I share his sentiment, at the same time, in between the lines, I feel that Barkley did everything right. And Barkley, I love him because he knows how to piss off Kevin Durant. So Barkley will never do any wrong in my eyes.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also able to piss off the great Michael Jordan by calling him out by saying, "Hey, man, you were the greatest basketball player that ever lived, but you suck as an owner." That kind of cost them their friendship.
Oh.
But honestly, if you can't take criticism from a friend, maybe you weren't his friend to begin with. That's my take on that.
Could be. Just one point on the conduct of players. Greg Hardy, several years ago, slapped up his girlfriend, threw her on the couch where he had some guns and stuff. He's out. He was suspended for some time. I can't. Maybe was it a year? Was it less? But I mean,
I could be mistaken. But I believe it was 1 year.
I mean, you're bringing these guys back in, and I think they should have something in their contract that any misconduct, and you can cut them on the spot.
To put it in perspective, something that I find laughable, the acceptance of medicinal marijuana has come a long way in terms of athletes using it to kind of just chill out, meditate, whatever have you, recreationally. Mm-hmm. And at the end of the day, I'd much rather have these players or just people in general use that as opposed to dealing with the hardcore pills that get you hooked, that fuck with your liver, and a lot of other things. But the point I'm making here, you take a guy like a Ray Rice. Do I think he's a bad person? No, I think he had a bad action and he did something deplorable. And I do think he's a better human being than what happened. But the bottom line is the entire nation saw him punch his girlfriend in an elevator. He got initially 2 games until there was an outcry. Meanwhile, Josh Gordon, who likes to get high and smoke weed, got years after, and it kind of puts in perspective, where are the priorities of how we discipline the athletes of sports? If you're going to give one guy a year for smoking weed, but you originally tried to give one guy 2 games for a violent act on a woman.
Right.
I'm like, what happened? Like, where did we go as a society when that shit's happening,
Right. Well, it's going to be curious to see what happens with Alvin Kamara.
Yes.
He got in some trouble on the Pro Bowl weekend. So
I recently, from my understanding, read something that Kamara was actually in the right defending himself. So we'll see how that plays out, similar to that Mike Tyson incident on the airplane. But that's going to be revealed. But from the latest I've read, it looks like Alvin Kamara may very well not get suspended.
Okay.
And at the same time, I'm for defending yourself too. If he's not looking for trouble because he was defending himself, that's always a little gray area there.
Mm-hmm.
Our friend Richard Dorney will be attending the Tuesday game. This is going to be exciting. First time in a long time, actually the first time ever, that this late in the season, the New York Yankees and the New York Mets both hold down first place and have legitimate chances to potentially be in this year's World Series. Of course, the Braves, your team in Milwaukee, the Brewers, the Astros will have some say in this matter. Of course, the Dodgers. But in your estimation now, there will be no Jacob deGrom for this series. To my knowledge, Garrett Cole's also not going to be in there because he only pitched a couple nights ago. It looks like Jordan Montgomery, and I believe the Yankees might actually be slotting in Marinaccio or maybe just a quick call from the minors. Where in the Mets case, I believe it is Taijuan Walker for game 1, and I'm going to find out who's pitching game 2. Who do you think has the edge here, John? 2 very talented teams from New York.
Well, is the games at Citi Field or?
Yes, sir. These first 2 are in Citi Field, and later in the year, there's going to be 2 more in the Bronx.
Okay. Well, it's probably a cop-out, but I'll say it's probably going to be a split. I mean, they're both so good right now. The Yankees are just playing out of their heads. I'm going to say that the Yankees take game 1 and the Mets will take game 2.
I actually tend to agree. And, having this show, it's hard for me to just be like, screw the Mets. We're winning 2. But, I try to play devil's advocate and be fair when it comes to my teams.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not making any crazy predictions that the G-Men are going to win 10 games and shock the NFL world, because if they do, then it'll be a pleasant surprise.
Right.
As far as this goes, the Yankees are dealing with some injuries right now. Unfortunately, we've been hard hit in the bullpen, but Zach Britton should be returning by week's end. He might miss that Mets series, but he's going to be much needed after the losses of Chad Green, as well as Michael King and Aroldis Chapman just essentially losing his confidence.
Mm-hmm.
The deadline's around the corner. So
Yeah.
I do think that the Yankees are going to make an attempt to potentially bring in a rental like Andrew Benintendi. Aaron Hicks got hurt yesterday. I don't know the severity of that. Joey Gallo, while an elite defender, has been just god-awful in terms of anything to do with his at-bats. So I do tend to believe that the Yankees are going to be busy. I don't necessarily think they're going to make the splashiest of splashes. I actually think the Mets, because Atlanta is sniffing them, might be more prone to making a splash, maybe a Wilson Contreras, maybe a David Robertson. Dorney made a good point on the phone with me yesterday, saying that while the Mets have a lot of talent, they don't have the clubhouse asshole that many teams need. And what I mean by the clubhouse asshole is a kind of like an enforcer, like in our team's case, a guy like a Josh Donaldson. While I don't condone his Jackie Robinson comments, at the same time, I understand that he is like that asshole that's going to push the envelope and just be that dude. But at the same time, is he a guy that if he wasn't playing for my team, that I want to root for? Nah, not necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
But I do understand where Dorney was going with that. He feels that Max Scherzer is that guy, but he's so new to being a Met that he's not a real Met just yet. And I understand where Dorney's going with that.
Mm-hmm.
I'm happy that we're not facing DeGrom. That's all I'm going to say, because, off the record, when healthy, he's the best. As good as Garrett Cole is, Corbin Burns, you got a lot of great pitchers. Max Scherzer, but that dude is on a different kind of level when he's right.
Is he going to be back? I mean,
my understanding is the series after the Yankees.
Okay.
And I wish him well, because I'm the furthest thing from a Met fan. But one thing I'll say is, when it comes to being a fan of the game, you want the game's best players to be able to do what they do.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? And it has nothing to do with team allegiance. We want to see the best.
Correct. We do.
And he's also on my fantasy team, John.
Yes, I know that. I was going to make that comment that you got a great team now. You got DeGrom and Tatis coming back. So
yeah, I drafted them and I've been patient. And they've both been on the medical list all year. So maybe I'll get rewarded for being so patient. But our baseball championship is like our league. It's just so wide open. So it really could go any way. I mean, Brett's having some good weeks and then he'll fall back. Your son, Josh, leading the way right now. I currently have a lead on him, but we have another week to play in our series. Yeah. So it's kind of like our little hors d'oeuvre before fantasy football.
Yes.
It keeps us kind of locked in and gets us in fantasy mode. But my God, we got to stop Don, man. This guy has won back-to-back championships in Cheddar and the Sun.
For sure.
Yeah, we need a new champ.
I told him he could change the name of his team. He said, I don't know, Ezekiel is, 2021 or whatever it is. He said, has served me well. So
yeah, he's kept.
We need to knock him out of there.
When I was a member of the Jordan Patrick Show, he kept my good friend Elliot's previous team name. Mm-hmm. Elliot's been working really hard on the music, and he's actually going to be helping me out with some of these fan base episodes that I've been doing, which I'm going to be interviewing you for in the near future. And I very much look forward to that. We're going to have a great time with that. John, the floor is yours, buddy. how do you feel on a final thought about your Brewers and Packers predictions? Kind of start wherever you want to start.
Okay. Well, we'll start with the Brewers. I think we're going to hang on to the number one spot in the NL Central. We're up on the Cardinals right now, 2 or 2.5 games, I believe. They had a nice comeback win last night. We beat. Heck, did we beat last night? 10-9. But we're not gonna go to the World Series, I don't think, with the hitting we have. We don't have a 300 hitter. Mike Broussard, who's a part-time player, is.
I know him well.
From the Tampa Bay, right?
Oh yeah, he sent us packing.
But he's 292, but he's only played in 42 games. The guys that should be our leaders, Yelich is down there around 235, 240. We've got some great guys that can have a good game. Willie Adames, McCutcheon's hitting 250.
Yeah, McCutcheon is a great player. I'd love to see him in October because he's going to raise his game and be the person when he was an MVP. So I was angry when the Yankees let him go.
The pitching, we got Burns, we got Woodruff, Lauer's been a great add-on. I mean, I was upset when we traded Grisham a couple of years ago to San Diego for him and Luis Urias, but we've gotten the better end of that trade right now. But I do think that the Packers or the Brewers will trade for a hitter for the trade deadline. And I think we're going to hang on for first place. Maybe we'll go one round in, but we need more hitting to do it. As far as the Packers, I'm gonna say they're going to be number one. The Vikings are going to be tough to beat.
They're getting better.
They're getting better. Jefferson. Well, we spoke earlier about the wide receivers in the league. He made a statement of he's going to surpass Devontae Adams as number one receiver this year. So I wouldn't be surprised. He catches everything thrown his way. But so the Vikings will be tough, and we're just going to count on Rodgers spreading the ball around to the receivers he's got. And you mentioned our running game, Dillon and Jones. It's probably going to be the best in the league. And with an improved defense, we'll finish one. And I have to think a little while before I say they're going to be Super Bowl champs, but I think I say it every year. So we'll be right there in the mix with both teams.
When you have a quarterback the caliber of Aaron Rodgers, you're supposed to have that confidence. My prediction will be revealed a little later as we get closer to the NFL season, but what I will say is I have a funny vibe that the Packers will play the Rams in the title game. And people have short memories, and while Tampa has had the Packers number, the Packers have had the Rams number.
Yes.
So it will be interesting to see how that shapes out. And then you always have the random wild card team that might be hungry and punch everybody in the mouth. And that's what makes the game so exciting and so much fun. While we're on the topic of predictions, how do you feel about our fantasy league? Richard Dorney trading away his first round pick, which ultimately was the first pick of the draft.
Well, Josh just saw something there. He said his team last year, he didn't feel confident. And
he had the uncharacteristic rough year because he's usually very good.
So, hey, I'm not going to knock Dorney. I traded away my number 2 pick. So Josh has the 1 pick, the 12 pick, the 13th pick, and then I picked 4th. So he'll, whatever that is, 18 or 19, he's got 3 or 4 picks. So
Yeah.
if he doesn't win it this year, he really shouldn't have any excuses. But no, it'll be
And
a
if
great.
Dorney wins
be
it
a
this
great
year,
league
that'll be
again.
like the
It'll be-
Cinderella story.
Pardon?
Sorry to crosstalk you.
Mhm.
If Dorney wins it this year, he'll be like kind of like the Cinderella story.
Yes. I wish
So
him
I
well.
told him, I said, draft well. I haven't decided what my team name is going to be yet. I was kind of trolling Dorney with he named his team Dable's Not My Dad because he looks just like Brian Dable, head coach of the New York Giants. I replied with Dable is my uncle
I saw
because
that.
Dorney is my brother. But I'll come up with something catchy. Last year I was Gallaudet Express, so I'm going to come up with something catchy.
Yeah.
Can't wait. We're going to have a good time.
Yeah, it'll be great.
John, thank you so very much for being on the show. This is your first appearance under my banner, the Richie Hicks Jr. Sports Podcast. Have a shirt for you. I'm going to be seeing you in just a couple of hours. You're always welcome to come back on, and I would love to have you on for the NFC North preview show.
And maybe we can get Josh on that show.
That would be really cool. I would like that.
So, okay. I'm happy to be on the show, and we'll see you in a while.
Yes, sir. Thank you, everyone, for watching. Please subscribe on YouTube. John, excellent job, and I appreciated having you on. And I'm going to see you in person in just a little bit. Take care, everyone, and I'll be back soon.